Afternoon, everyone. My name is Parker Milner. I'm the food editor for the Post and Courier, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. I'm joined by fellow Post and Courier reporter Andrew Miller, and together we'll discuss the growing Brazilian community in Goose Creek. This conversation builds on a story we co-authored titled Goose Creek's Growing Brazilian Community Making an Impact with Restaurants and Businesses. Goose Creek city officials estimate that about 7,000 residents in the city of 48,000 can trace their roots back to Brazil. Brazilian restaurants and businesses are concentrated in and around an area of town called the Red Bank Corridor, a section of the city that city officials and others believe could become the next Park Circle. Andrew, you've been reporting on this subject matter and Goose Creek in general for a couple years now. When did you first start noticing the Brazilian community's impact on the city?
Well, it started really when I did a story on the Red Bank Road corridor. And as you said, the city officials are trying to turn that really into the next Park Circle or the next really Somerville downtown area. City officials want a distinct downtown walkable area with shops and restaurants, places where people can park. And as in the process of doing that story, I kept running into people of Brazilian descent to the point where I went back to Matt Brady, who's the economic development director in the city of Goose Creek. And Matt was like, yeah, there are like 7,000 people of Brazilian descent here. And I was just flabbergasted by that. Excuse me, that figure. That's almost 20% of their total population of Brazilian descent, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I've been around for 33 years. I've been here since 1989. So when I moved here, Goose Creek was a blue-collar military town, and what it has become and what it has evolved to in these last 30 years has been remarkable to me. It's just when the Navy base shut down, people thought that the town was going to die, and it didn't happen at all. The opposite happened, is that it kind of revitalized the town, and people began to move in. And if you look at the demographics, say as opposed to Somerville, Goose Creek is a younger, more diverse, better educated town than Somerville. Somerville kind of gets all the love outside of Charleston, with people and coming into the community. And I think that does a disservice to Goose Creek and the job that Mayor Habib and guys like Matt Brady have done, and the city council have done to kind of revitalize the city. And again, a part of that was redeveloping or the attempts to redevelop parts of Red Bank Road. And it seems like a lot of the Brazilian people are clustered in that corridor. And again, I ran into it, and then I think you were going to do a story on kind of the food scene there, and you were kind of running into the same thing, that there were a lot of people of Brazilian descent, a lot of markets and restaurants and bake shops, and I think that's kind of how we came up with the idea together to do a story like this. And I think it was really, really interesting, really cool story that I don't think a lot of people knew about.
Yeah, and I also want to apologize to our listeners for our little technical issues this morning. But I think everything you just said is totally spot on. I was really struck by just going up there for the I think it was when that brewery was opening in the old fire station was the first time I'd been up in Goose Creek in a while, and I drove around a little bit before, and I was just so amazed. You see the market, and then you see another Brazilian restaurant, and then I was like, wait a second. And going into those places I went into the first one, Delicious des Minas, on a Saturday, and just stepping in there, you feel like you don't really feel like you're in Charleston anymore. And that was what really struck me. You're hearing a lot of Portuguese, and the food that they're serving is just completely unlike many of the other places you'll visit in the city. And so I was really happy that we were able to team up on this story. And both of us talked together to a man named Glici Raul. How did you, Andrew, you kind of introduced us, but how did you first come to know Glici?
Well, it was again, I go back to that Red Bank Road corridor story and the revitalization that they. It was funny because I talked to Matt Brady, and Matt Brady was like, "Yeah, he's the mayor of Goose Creek. He's the mayor of Goose Creek, the Brazilian mayor of Goose Creek, and if anything going on in that community, he's the one to know about it." And I think what I hope our readers got this in the story that you and I wrote. I mean, it's really a story of the American, to me, the story of the American dream for an individual. He comes to Miami, he's got $1,500 in his pocket and a one-way plane ticket. He kind of can't go back home. His father kind of pushed him out of the house and lives with 7 guys in Miami. And I think met his wife down in Miami. But anyway, so he had a friend or a cousin, somebody that was related to him that was running a construction business up in Goose Creek. And that's kind of how he got here. He started just as a day laborer, really, trying to learn the business from the bottom up. And eventually that turned into he kind of became a real estate mogul. I guess that's the best way you could describe him. And he went from working with residential real estate to commercial real estate. Now he's kind of opening that shared office space right there on Red Bank Road, right near Montana's restaurant. He's a huge success story, and just shows you what hard work and smarts can do for you. But yeah, I kept running into him. And people would tell me, hey, if there was something going on in the Brazilian community, that I was, talk to him. And that's what I did. And he could have been more gracious or open with his time with us when you and I went and talked to him.
Yeah, certainly. And I remember during our conversation, he brought up a Brazilian wedding that he went to, and he was telling us about how he was explaining to a friend this Brazilian treat called a bendijo, I think is how you say it. I'm gonna have to work with him on my pronunciation, but he was telling me about that. And during the reporting for the story, I went over to Mama's Bakery and Restaurant, which is one of the stories that we featured, or the restaurants that we featured, and they had them there, just sitting right in a little case by the pastry counter. And so it was just really interesting to try one of those right after he had described it. And it's a chewy coconut crusted candy. It's not the best thing that I've ever eaten in my life, and I don't even think he would call that. But to hear him describe how it made him feel like he was at home and remind him of home, and that really brought the story home to me. Thinking about this Brazilian community, that now they have all these places that they can go that make them feel like they're at home. And it just seems like the more Brazilians that end up in Goose Creek, that the more that's going to kind of avalanche, and people are going to continue to feel that way and want to move there.
Yeah, absolutely. He talked about the fluctuation of the Brazilian community, kind of as it relates to the Brazilian economy back in Brazil. And when things are going bad there, a lot more people will come here, and vice versa. But I think one of the things that he also pointed out to us is now that's kind of changed. The people who were coming here, the Brazilian people that were coming here when he was coming here, were blue collar laborers, workers, people like that. But he said now there's more kind of white collar, college educated entrepreneurs, people who are looking to get into business. They're kind of flocking to Goose Creek as well. So it's interesting, kind of the change of the makeup of the Brazilian population that is here, that has happened. He was telling me over the last 5 years that he's seen much more college educated, much more people who are really into the entrepreneurial spirit, not just laborers, not just construction workers, people like that. The people that were coming here were just a different class of people. And that's interesting that Goose Creek has kind of become this magnet for people like that. The word is spreading within Brazil and within the Brazilian community that more people are coming here. And I think that's only going to continue, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I want to remind everyone that you can type in your questions. We're happy to answer any questions that you have about this story as we continue to discuss how we reported on it. And another thing that was mentioned in the story was a Brazilian market that I found. It's right on Red Bank Road there, and I didn't know this until we were doing the story, and I reached out and they got back to me, and I didn't even realize, but they are in the process of moving into a space that will have to recheck my notes, but I think it's like 5 or 10 times larger than the one that they're in right now, and it's going to be next to a Brazilian restaurant that I think the owner invested $1.3 million in to bring to Goose Creek. So what is, from the reporting that you've seen, Andrew, what does that mean for that area, and what does that signal in terms of growth moving forward?
Well, again, that goes back to that Red Bank Road corridor and the revitalization of that. And there's the city owns a couple of parcels of land right there at the intersection of Red Bank Road and 52. And part of what they want to do is they want to make this a walkable area. And I think the market that you're describing is exactly the kind of thing that the city wants. They want a place where people can go and congregate. I think parking is one of the issues, and I know that sounds kind of silly to talk about it, but parking really is one of the issues that has been kind of I don't want to say a speed bump, but that they're still trying to figure that out. I mean, if you look at what Park City has done, and even what the downtown Somerville has done with some of those parking issues, they've kind of centralized it so you can go out and walk around and go to those walkable areas. And I think that's one of the things that the city is looking into, but that the market, that the fact that expanding means obviously that there's a client go further into it. Not just Brazilian people are going to go there. I think people like me and you are going to go there. Like, everyone's going to hear about this and they're going to want to go, because I think it's such a unique thing for our area. And like I said, that community, that whole Goose Creek community, is so much more diverse than what it was, even 10 years ago, from what we are seeing today.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the larger space. But they grind their own sausage there. They make their own meat. The cuts that you get in Brazil are different cuts of beef than we have here in America, and so they're Brazilian people who live in the area are able to go there and get the cuts that they're used to, as opposed to things that might feel foreign to them. And there's also, even as I was walking around there, there's sandals from Brazil, there's Brazilian sunscreen, things like that the owner gets through a distributor in New Jersey that again just make just feel more familiar, I would imagine. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see once they grow into that larger space there.
What's the name of the steakhouse there? The new one, the owner.
Chow Ghana is the name of the steakhouse. And,
as I said, I never pronounced it. And you talked about the $1.3 million investment that he made. Now, he got some of that money from his family when he initially saw the property. And that property was just a cinder block house on Red Bank Road. It was dilapidated. No one had lived there in, I think, 5 or 6 years, according to the city officials that I talked to. He got a loan. He got some help from his family, and he invested $1.3 million. And when I asked him why, God, that's a big investment for that, and he owns part of that little shopping center that's right next to it as well. Too, as I recall, that's what he does own some of that. But I asked him, that's a big investment for a place like that, and he just believes that, again, that Red Bank corridor, that city, the city of Goose Creek, the Red Bank corridor, is going to be a bustling place. It's going to be the next Park Circle. And I think you and I and a lot of people are always interested, what's next? What's the next big thing that's going to hit your also? What's the next Park Circle? What's the next downtown, Somerville downtown area going to be? And I think Goose Creek has a very good chance to be that next kind of it place in the next year. And I think the brewery and that new steakhouse and then the revitalization on Red Bank Road is a part of that process.
Yeah, what are some of the challenges that you've seen? Because walkability definitely seems like one. If you're driving, like, the cars kind of cruise by Red Bank Road, it seems like, so I'm sure they are facing some challenges. What are some of the other ones that maybe you've come across?
There are also some parcels that individual property owners own, and they don't know what's going to happen with those. But definitely walkability, parking, and are they going to be able to have enough economic incentive to bring these new businesses there? Somebody, I think about, when I think about Park Circle, I think about City Evolve, and they were kind of the main developers of Park Circle, and somebody had to kind of take that first step and invest there and make an investment. And I think the city wants, they need a big player to come in, like the City Evolve, like some kind of developer like that, to kind of make that first big initial push. And I think everything will fall into place after that. But you're right, walkabilities, parking is another place. Mayor Habib has talked about building some kind of amphitheater around that area. Now, where are you going to put that, and where's the parking going to be for that? I mean, I don't know about you, Parker, but if I can't find parking, I'm not going. I mean, I'm just not. I mean, that's really one of the big keys for me. If I cannot get to whatever venue you want me to get to in a reasonably timely fashion, then I'm probably not going to go. So I think there's got to be some dedicated parking in the area.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the food during my reporting process throughout this, the thought that kept coming to my mind was that first chain Brazilian steakhouse I went to, and just that early impression that I think growing up in the United States, you get of Brazilian food. And I think that's unfortunately the view that we get about a lot of foods from different cultures when we experience them, maybe at chain restaurants or Americanized places here, is you get this image in your head of what you think something is. And for me, it was just so rewarding to go to Mama's and Delicias das Minas in the market and to see how nuanced their food is, and to see how it has so much more to offer than people coming around with an insane amount of sliced meat and feeding you until you can't move, which is my first experience of a Brazilian restaurant. And so it was just, when I went to Mama's, I was asking people what they were eating, and fish stew was the dish that kept coming up. It was something that the owner, Lucieda Sales, she had taken it off the menu, but regulars had requested it so much that she brought it back, and it wasn't quite even a stew for that matter. It was this big piece of cod that had been simmering for a while, and there were rice and beans, and it was just so far beyond what, like I said, people might expect if they'd only visited those places there. So I think that's one big takeaway for me, and something that I hope readers take away is just how important it is to explore restaurants from different cultures for yourself and really see what they have to offer. And this was just a really great reminder of that for me.
Yeah, and when I went to the steakhouse that we've been talking about, they brought out, I don't know how best to describe this, a sampling of the food that they had, and it was so vast, so the variety was so different from anything that I had experienced. And I did ask him about it. I said, you go to some Mexican restaurants and they've been Americanized, and I asked the owner about that, and he was like, "This is authentic Brazilian food," and it was different, and I had to take kind of a leap of faith because I'm not the most I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't take many chances when I go eat, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. And it was great. It was different. It was different from anything that I ever had, but it was really interesting. And my wife is more adventurous than I am when it comes to food. And we both went up there, and she absolutely loved it. So
that's great.
Encourage everyone to go there. And especially, you're right. You go to the market and you feel like you're not in Charleston anymore, but I think that's a good thing, to get that kind of international flavor. You think about big cities, Chicago, New York, Boston, wherever you're from, and you're from Pittsburgh, and there is some of that international feel there. And I think that's starting to come into Charleston as well, because obviously the population here has grown so much, as it's become so diverse in the last 10 years. And I think it's only going to continue. You think about Volvo, you think about Boeing, you think about Walmart that's moving in up there in the Goose Creek area. And you got the mega developments, Carnes Crossroads, Cane Bay, Nexton. More and more people are coming to the area, whether we like it or not. And there's going to be more diverse population, which I think is only good for our area.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I'm sure you did have a lot of meat at Chowgana. Meat
Yeah.
is
Oh,
certainly, I don't want to, meat is a big part of Brazilian food culture for sure. But at, at, at some of the places, I think they really do it primarily, at least Delicious Dos Minas, on the weekends is when they really, and so meat definitely is a part of the culture for sure. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I do think that we're going to continue to see more and more of that, and I'm exploring that each week in our premium Charleston's menu food newsletter as well. So
yeah, and
and
I did get some great pineapple there though when I was there. So I don't want, you're right.
okay,
It's not all
no,
meat.
that's
Yeah, I
noted.
got some great pineapples.
Yeah, and kind of a fun story about Mama's. Again, the place that where I had the fish stew. So the owners, it's a couple that grew up in Brazil, and they moved to Goose Creek about 10 years ago, and they wanted their parents to be able to come and move with them, and they so they opened this restaurant for their parents, and the parents, Luqueda and Humberto. Luqueda grew up in Brazil, and her father, he was in the croquette making business, and so they would just make croquettes, and Humberto wanted to meet Luqueda, and the only way he was allowed to is if he would make croquettes with them and help out with the family business, and he did that, and kind of the rest is history. So now it's kind of full circle where he's actually and we got some pictures of it, which was cool, but he makes croquettes at Mama's, and it's just such a wonderful family operation, and just an example of what you can grow out of just a desire to create that taste of home, and I think that's something that the diners in the restaurant could definitely sense, that it's more than just a place to eat. It's a place to experience something beyond
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and again, I go back to Glace and what he was talking about, and that kind of experience that he wanted to get from home, and to feel like, because when he talks to people in the community, they long for the things that they got at home in Brazil, and I think that market and kind of that whole culture. I mean, that when I think about home and food, obviously that food plays a big part of that, and that's kind of how you together as a community, is kind of at the dinner table, and at least that's the way it was at Big House. Again, I just think we're going to see more and more kind of Brazilian themed businesses and restaurants and markets up along Red Bank Road and in Goose Creek. I just think that's inevitable.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew, I know you've transitioned to sports coverage now. So Andrew is again a sports reporter. But what are you looking forward to following in terms of Goose Creek and Goose Creek growth and Mayor Habib and everything that they have going on there?
Well, again, I'm very interested to see how Mayor Habib and the city council have a vision for what they want Goose Creek to look like. Again, they kind of, one of the things that they found, and they found that a lot of people from Goose Creek, they were getting a lot of leakage. And what that means is that people in Goose Creek were going to eat at Park Circle, they were going to shop in Park Circle, or they were going to Somerville. And so a lot of those dollars were leaking out of the community. And now what they want to do is they want to keep that money and those dollars in the community. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens again with the Red Bank Road corridor and their vision for a walkable downtown area vis-a-vis the park. Like downtown Somerville, kind of than another. Because I'll tell you, Park Circle, when I was here in the late 80s and early 90s, it was not a place you wanted to go, but now it's probably the most desirable place to go. And I think that's the evolution has started in Goose Creek, and I think it's only going to continue as Mayor Habib's vision and the vision of the city council, as long as they can keep them, and a lot of that's got to do with this 10-year comprehensive plan that's going to come up, and what the details are in that, and are they going to be able to stick to that plan? And if they do, I think then Goose Creek's going to become a really desirable place for people to live, shop, and go out to eat.
Certainly, and I've got a big list of Goose Creek restaurants that I'm kind of checking off, and there's a lot to explore out there from a food perspective, and I'm really thrilled to continue to do that. But thanks Andrew, and it was great reporting on this with you. And that's about all the time we have for today, but I want to thank everyone for joining and subscribing to the Post and Courier. If you're not a subscriber, you can do so by visiting postandcourier.com/subscribe. And you can also check out my newsletter, Charleston's Menu, by visiting postandcourier.com/CHS menu. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.